All right, welcome to the Hosea 4 verse 6 podcast. I got a special guest with me. I got Dr. Owen Brown. Dr. Owen Brown is a professor of sociology in the Department of Social and Behavior Sciences at Medgar Evers College. Medgar Evers College is a senior college in the City University of New York system. He has written numerous peer-reviewed articles and has secured over 12 million in grants for funding for the college program serving underrepresented populations living in central Brooklyn. He has presented papers at Columbia University's Women's Seminar Series. Owen is also a member of the Editorial Board for the Journal on Race and Policy. Finally, he is working on a book, The Awakening: Women of African Ancestry Who Lived Freed, or Enslaved into the Making of America. And he also written an op-ed, Let's Smile, Lie, and Murder. I enjoyed that op-ed. And he's
Thank you.
also my professor in my first year of college in Sociology 101. Welcome to the show, Dr. Brown.
Thank you, my brother. And before we start, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be a part of your show. It's very important, and it's the ancestors smiled down on me that here is a young man who life I've touched and who's touching so many other lives. And that's the way I was brought up, and that's the way we need to bring our children up.
Absolutely. The ancestors come in many ways. They pass down from generation to generation. But Dr. Owen Brown, your name is similar to the name of John Brown, son Owen Brown, and John Brown is a passionate abolitionist who fought against slavery. What about sociology interests you that made you study it for so long and teach it?
Well, I tell you, I remember when I first went off to college at Bennington University, I wanted to become a psychologist. And unfortunately, I ran into a lot of headwinds in that area. And somehow, my second semester, freshman year, I had the opportunity to take a sociology course. My second sociology course with Dr. Tomich, Dale Tomich. And Dale was inspiring. He was uplifting, and he inspired me to become a sociologist. And along with Dale, I had the opportunity to speak with to learn from Dr. Terrence Hopkins, God rest his soul, who really helped and guided and molded me as a graduate student to pursue a PhD in sociology. And what I love about sociology is that it has taught me how to understand the physical space within which we live. And the sociology program I went through at Bennington University was unusual. It was not the traditional sociology program because at one time I wanted to go to Brown University to study sociology or Columbia University to study sociology. And their sociology program was pretty much conservative, pretty much traditional. And the exposure that I got at Bennington really shaped me to understand a lot of issues and questions that I had as a young man in high school. One of those issues that still burns bright in my head was I remember me and my friends, we were walking on the rails of a railroad track in Suffolk County, Long Island, Suffolk County, Long Island. I remember thinking to myself, where will all of us be in 20 years? And why is it that out of all my friends, it was only two of us who graduated from high school?
Mm.
So when I came to college, that was a question, or those were questions that were illuminated in my frontal lobe. And I have to say that through my journey through sociology, because as an undergraduate major, my degree was in sociology and economics. I came to be able to understand what are called long-term, large-scale processes that have really shaped my history, my personal biography, and those of my friends And we did not know it at the time. And you know, I reflect back on C. Wright Mills, a great sociologist. He got his PhD from University of Maryland, and he was a professor at Columbia for many years. And he said, you know, if you want to see your future, look at those around you. Look at where their life trajectory is taking them. And most likely that will tell you what your future will be.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a famous quote that I like to quote is from the Honorable Louis Farrakhan that says that when men fall, don't laugh, watch. And it seems like when you were seeing what your peers were doing, you were looking at the outcome of their decisions. And just like history is a progress of decisions. It's not just it's one decision after the other, day to day, right? So we know that the sociology is the study of the development, structure, and functioning of society. Is it more of government, the study of government, or the structure of community, development of structure of community?
So let me pull back, my brother.
Yes.
This is when we talk about individual decisions, we have to be careful not to walk into that trick bag.
Okay.
Why do I say this? Again, going back to Mills. If one person is unemployed, then maybe we can make the argument that that person is unemployed because he or she's lazy. If 100,000 individuals are unemployed, does that explanation holds up?
No.
Maybe there's something going on that we don't see. It's like gravity. We don't see gravity, but it's there. You hit a wet floor and you slip. That's gravity asserting itself on you. Some may call it a weak force, but it's a force nevertheless. Right? That acts upon you. Now, as I've grown older, one of the things I've seen is what I call the flat earth explanation for things. Right? The flat earth explanation for things. Right? The simplistic explanation for things. That person don't like me, that's why they are always against me. Again, that may be true. But that person may not like you because he or she has an ideological perspective that identify you and people like you as being a threat. So despite the fact that the truth that you're talking is the truth, they're always against you. If you ever look at the and I won't call them conservative because these people are radicals. They're not conservative, they're radicals, they're extremists, they're zealots. It's either their way or no way. If you ever look at the approach they take, they don't apologize when they're wrong. They don't acknowledge that they're wrong. They always pass the blame to you or someone else. I fail because I'm unlucky. I fail because Black people, because affirmative action is taking my slot. It's always something external. And it's like Orwell said, George Orwell, he said, when you look at people who defend the indefensible, they use euphemisms because they can't use language that identify what is actually taking place. Because when they do that, they're telling the truth. Right? So the genocide of a community becomes pacification or relocation or gentrification. But these are real life people who are being impacted by force that is external to them, that is imposing itself on them in their communities because they want to remove them from their communities. Right? So I always say, be very careful when we start looking at decisions, because oftentimes, whether you realize it or not, you think you may be making decision, but that decision have been made for you because the structures that you've been placed in.
in front of you. Yeah. So basically, you're saying there's a nuance behind every decision.
No, there's no nuance, my brother. I'm saying to you that we live within a physical world.
Yes.
For hundreds, if not thousands of years, the people from Europe was cut off from indigenous peoples here in what we call the Americas,
Yes.
right? And when we talk about the Americas, that is a label that's been imposed on them. They did not look at themselves as being American,
They were
or
different
being
things.
Americans, right? This is something that's been imposed on them through conquest, colonization, and genocide. But here again, we go back to Orwell and his experience in India. We always have to use language to hide what is actually taking place in front of us. Because you know what? It is ugly.
Yeah.
It is ugly. I remember many years ago, I remember watching this movie, The Deer Hunter. Right? It's a movie that was set in the Vietnam era. And these guys, I believe in Pennsylvania, these are hunting fish and all this stuff. And it was just the start of the Vietnam conflict, and they were in a bar, and a military person came in, and he was destroyed. And the propaganda that these guys were being told about, we're going to go over there and kill off these people who are fighting for their freedom, you know, right? And they couldn't understand why he was acting the way that he was acting. If you ever have a chance, just look at The Deer Hunter.
I
The
will.
movie Deer Hunter, right? I believe it won a couple of Academy Awards.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you're bringing up history, man, because I'm a student of history, and
Yeah.
I know that sociology is the study of society, and I know that there's been different societies throughout history. The first society was hunting and gathering, and then when technology came into play and agriculture came into play, we came into civilization. How does history play a part in sociology?
History undergirds sociology. And unfortunately, again, the education that I've had and the being accidentally, or maybe the ancestors, God just sending me where he sent or where she sent me, I came across a number of scholars who did not accept on faith value what all of us have been taught. We talk about hunter-gatherers. Okay, I mean, hunter-gatherers are a small band of people who were nomadic. They move, they follow their food, right? And then with the domestication of animals, and we have now agriculture, and we have settled communities where people don't have to follow their food; they grow their food,
Mm-hmm.
right? They domesticate their food, so they start to give some routine to their existence, which the hunter-gatherers had a routine, but that routine was very different from those people who became settled. Right?
The sedentary lifestyle versus the hunting and gathering, nomadic, moving around lifestyle.
And as I wrote an article, and I hope it gets published, talk about, human beings, I don't care where you find us, and I don't care how you label us. We love security. We love regularity. We love norms.
Mm.
Despite the fact that some of us say we love excitement, and when the excitement gets too crazy, we're like, you know what? I'm going to dial it back. I'm going home, and I don't want to be a part of this no more because I don't want anything bad to happen to me. Right?
Uh-huh.
That's imprinted in our DNAs.
Is that a survival mechanism?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
It's usually the bull will get eaten first.
Uh-huh.
It's the cowards who fall back and survive.
That's
right?
true.
I mean, it's imprinted in our DNA just like gravity.
Yeah.
But if you listen to all these pundits talk, they talk about race as if it's something that is unchanging, the black race. And now everybody's a race. Every subcategory is a race, right? But if we look at it historically, we find that how we deal with race is something that's relatively new. And by new, I'm talking about from the 15th century forward, when we talk about modernity. And when we talk about modernity, we're talking about a period within which many of the things that we now take for granted began to manifest themselves in the 1500s. One of my professors taught me this period is what they call the long 16th century.
Okay.
So we start to see the rise of large-scale cities. We start to see the rise of commerce. We start to see the growth in regional economies. We start to see capitalism as a historical system replacing what was once dominant world empires or empires, right? And despite the fact that when I went to school, and I'm quite sure when you went to school, they taught us about the Spanish Empire, the Dutch Empire,
mercantilism,
and the French Empire.
Yep.
The fact is that they were part of a process that now when we look around the world and we talk about globalization, that was the start, the genesis of that process.
Yep. I always tell my students that when we look at African American history, it starts really with Christopher Columbus in 1492 when he took that boat and he crossed the Atlantic Ocean and arrived here. That started the chain of events that got us here in this side of the world.
Yeah, and another part of it you must remember is that the Ottomans conquered was a force in the East.
Yes, they were.
For them to get to the spice and the riches of the Orient, they could not go through the Ottoman Empire. It was too strong.
It was Muslim too. It was a beef between the Muslims and the Christians at that time.
Yeah,
too.
but I mean, the Ottomans are Muslims, and with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, we now look at its core, which is Turkey, which is a Muslim, which is an Islamic country, secular, and people put a lot of weight into that. And as I tell my students, these processes are very complex. They're convoluted. And they give us the sense that history repeats itself. No, history don't repeat itself.
It rhymes.
It runs, and you know what? As Bordell and the Annell School, which were a group of historians in the early part of the 20th century, who looked at history differently from traditional history. We're not from rake. We just report the facts. They saw that the facts could be interpreted. The facts could be manipulated. The facts could be reconstructed, right? But what cannot be, but one thing we can't get around, just like we can't get around gravity, is the material world within which we live. So when I try to tell my students about this, someone say, Dr. Brown, this is too much. I just want to get an A, man. And he's just going too far. And again, it comes back to the complexity. When we talk about African Americans, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, the category, the social construction of African Americans did not exist.
No, it didn't.
Right? I forget the brother Blassingame. He wrote a number of influential books. Anyway, he talks about African traditions, and one of the things that really caught my attention was it Blassingame or was someone Stuckey. I think it was Stuckey. Don't quote me on his first name, Stuckey. He said, and what I gleaned from that, what created the African Americans as a unique social construction was the common terror. When you experienced police brutality, that's the common terror. that George Floyd experienced, that Brianna experienced, that so many African American experience, and then they come along and tell us it's you're trying to politicize and racialize stuff. We're not. It's a part of our experience that we know as normal. But for them who have not been a part of that experience, for them who could drive through a community, like, I remember watching Dave Chappelle, right? When he's doing that short skit, the show.
Yeah.
And he's, there's a skit where, the cop pulled up and Dave Chappelle is like, hide the weed, hide the weed.
Yeah.
And the white guy in the car was like, nah, you're not hiding the weed, I'm just smoking the weed. For them, police brutality is not a part of their normative experience. For us, it is. For us, I remember many years ago, my mother telling me, Junior, if the cops pull you over, be very respectful. I'm like, But then I had to reflect back, growing up in Suffolk County, walking my friends, and their finest rolled up on us and told us, you niggas better get home before we lock you up. And having the experience of going through the American criminal justice system where the defendants are black and brown and the judges, the court officers, and so on and so forth are predominantly white. And having the experience of bringing my youngest son upstate to one of these liberal arts colleges on a college tour, and the professors, the vast majority of the professors and administrators are white. But walking into that cafeteria and all of the faces serving white folks are black. Or back in the 90s, I gave a paper in New Orleans, and this black woman walked into the session, and she was hot. She said a white couple came up to me and gave me their bags and told me to bring the bags up to their room. She's like, I don't work here. And we see it now in terms of all these videos of what they call Karens and all that, who feel that the space that they populate is not a space that people that look like you and me belong in, because they don't see it as a part of their normal reality. Or when I say to my wife, I see black folks on doing commercials talking. I'm like, I don't know any black folks that talk like that. I don't know I've seen black folks act like that, right? But that's not a part of my regular experience. But that's what they pump into our psyche. And after a while, in the back of our operating system, these become our expectations.
Being programmed.
I mean, we could unprogram ourselves, but the thing is, how do we make ourselves conscious of it? And you are on the front line. And here I say, brother, being an educator is so important. But my experience as being an educator is that we are under-resourced, we're overstressed, our infrastructure is crumbling, right? And as soon as we start showing signs of being successful, here come the okie doke. Right, here come the okie doke. So the work that you're doing, brother, is God's work. God's work. And I was looking at these Mothers for Liberty. I have come to know this, and we see it in the Bible. And Jesus lived that life. He didn't just speak about it, he lived that life. He took care of those who could not take care of themselves. But he was 100, He was 100. And these people want to teach us that some people are better than others. No, they want to create an environment where we serve and supposed to adore them, while they put the boot and while they put their knees on our necks.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to say anything.
Can you explain social constructs? Because I know that social constructs is basically they placed people of color under the category of black, and they're using the category of black to restrict, like you said, resources, education, to commit redlining. Can you explain that?
I tell you this, brother. We are our original people. We are the original people, right? We are the original people, and I've had the opportunity, thanks to Dr. Oh my gosh. Now let me say this: I understand this whole idea about social constructs, and I do understand about these subcategories. If I could, my approach to explanation is one that is rooted very deeply in the spiritual and the material. And for me, I don't see any contradiction, or I don't see those things as being a dichotomy on opposite side of the pole. I see them as being opposite side of a single coin. What do I mean by this is that in order for one to exist, both must exist.
Mm.
So when I hear about social construct, I mean that's. I think Medgar Evers captured it when he said, imagine, and that when we talk about social construct, we can look at it as being imagined, because we live in a physical world.
Yeah.
Right? I can't imagine you because you occupy space. Right? At least we occupy space for a certain amount of time, the way we are, but then when we pass away, we're going to occupy space also, but not the way we occupy space right now.
That's true. We transfer, energy transfers.
Of course. Right? Mm-hmm. Matters, you can't destroy matter.
Can't destroy it.
But yeah. So when I hear these things, again, my brother, I'm skeptical. And I don't try to say it's wrong, because you have a piece of reality that I may not be in touch with. Mm. But what if brother I grew up with, he said to me, why believe when you could know? Just before I went off to college. Why believe when you could know?
When you can know.
I hear people say about, I believe in God. I know there's a God. That's the spiritual side of it. Right? Some people talk about ancestors as if, they're dead. The ancestors is always with us. I know.
They're not genes. They're not DNA.
Yeah, I know. There's times, bro, when in my life, man, when I could not see a way, and somehow God sent me a way. Right? I can talk about it being 1 + 1 = 2, or make a prediction about how things are going to turn out. There's times in my life, bro, I said, man, I don't know how this is going to turn out.
Yeah.
So that's the spiritual side that my grandmother taught me a long time ago. And she also taught me about the ugly side of people that say they love you, but the things that they do to you is not a reflection of their love. And in the context, my grandmother, she got put out, and she's in apartments crying with her suitcases, right? And a woman who's a total stranger came up to her and asked her, why are you crying? And my grandmother shared with her her burden. And you know what this woman did? Took one of her suitcases, and my grandmother grabbed the others and brought her to her home and put my grandmother up.
Oh,
right? And I say this in the context of, I hear about, the progressive and the liberals and this immigrant or this migrant problem. The fact is, a lot of people who are progressive will say this is wrong, the government needs to do blah, blah, blah. But something, if this is something you feel strongly about, create a space in your home for those people to stay.
Yeah.
That's where the rubber meets the road. And as I look around and look at the politics, it's about a whole bunch of tricks and hijinks. When Jordan brought his circus to New York to embarrass the Manhattan DA because he had indicted Trump, that's all they do. And what they call is cultural, woke. These are people's lives who have been excluded. And they're trying to say that, no, you're the problem, not us. The boys talked about the color line at the start of the 20th century. It's still with us. And we still use the language of the oppressors to define who we are. So now they got us in little buckets. Right? Black, people of color, and okay. And everyone believes now that, hey, my issue is important. I go back to Gil Scott Heron. He said, in one of his poems, he said, "What's my equivalent to you? I just want a wife and a kid and a job that could take care of my family. You're checking out for 4 years, but you can always go back to your home.
Yeah.
You got that option, bro."
Yeah.
And they want to make sure we don't have that option. And it takes me this issue of gentrification, because we talk about these issues as if they're discrete, as if we have different components of our lives that don't overlap. Gentrification, it's about using the market to bludgeon people that look like you and me, so we can't afford a place to stay. We can't take care of our families. And then we feel bad about ourselves because, I can't take care of my children because I don't have a job. And it brings me back to the affirmative action. It brings me back to W.E.B. Du Bois, a scholar, a gentleman who they try to beat down and grind into ashes. Right? When you took Sociology 101, one of the things I did not teach you and many of my students early on was that Du Bois, you learn about the Chicago School of Sociology, you learn about Columbia School of Sociology. What Du Bois were doing in Atlanta precedes those schools by 20 years.
Mm.
The methodology that he used, go and read, is Philadelphia Negro, a social studies, cutting edge, that was published in 1899. When he went to the University of Pennsylvania, they treated him like he was dirt when he was conducting the study. And even today, you'll see that he's being disappeared from the canons. So I was listening to one of my colleagues share with me, Jill Scott's reconstruction of the national anthem, or when she speaks about we being erased, we are being erased. Land of the slave. Many of our young people don't know about Mary Terrell Church, who talked about lift as we climb. She was a contemporary of W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the first, if not the first, African American to receive a bachelor's degree at a college here in the United States. Right? So the book I'm writing about is about, and as I state very clearly in the book, women will not be preceded by the hyphen black. Because women are women. Why is a privileged place being given to white women who are European colonial settlers? That's who they are. But now they're Americans. So all the evils that have been done to grind the indigenous people, and I don't call them Native Americans, indigenous people, because they were not a monolithic group. All of us been washed away when we talk about Americans. And I'm not saying that I am not patriotic. I'm very patriotic, but the truth has to be told.
That's true.
And when we look at what Abbott is doing down in Texas, DeSantis is doing, and what's going on in Georgia and all these red states, they want to make sure that we're not at the table. And if we're at the table, we're serving them. So this attack on what they call affirmative action, go back again to Du Bois. Stop your whining, stop your complaining, right? And get to the hard work. Because the hard work that we do, we won't need the civil rights laws. We won't.
Yeah.
Because the amazing thing we must understand, and I again go back to my Professor Wallerstein, Giovanni Arrighi, and Ali Mazruri. They taught me to understand is that you can't look at an issue in the short term. You have to look at those issues over 100, 200, 300, 400 period, right? Look at the civil rights legislation that was passed, that was rescinded back in the 1800s, late 1800s, and then this place Jim Crow, right? After the victory of the Civil War, the black folks thought that we are free. It was erased in a generation.
Yeah.
Now they come in with this okie doke, and I hear folks, saying, "Well, these people were used as a pawn." No, go back to Du Bois. Stop whining. We have a lot of resources in our communities, and our schools should be about excellence, not black excellence, but excellence.
That's true. Well, you mentioned affirmative action, and first of all, what is affirmative action, and why do you think there was a lack of outrage because of the dismissal of affirmative action by the Supreme Court judge? I mean, our ancestors fought, bled, and died for affirmative action to be in law in 1961, and for it to be stripped away recently. What is affirmative action? And
So we talk about affirmative action, and I mean, there was President Kennedy, who was who first mandated through executive action, executive order, and then it was amended again by Lyndon B. Johnson, I think in 62 or 63.
Yep.
And it speaks to trying to correct historical wrongs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Historical wrongs in terms of black folks. Or at that point, we were colored, about to be black, Stokely Carmichael and Black Power.
Yeah.
And who was the first head of the CIA? Not CIA, but FBI. Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover.
Rained hellstorm down on us.
Yep, he did.
Right. And there's a mysticism about this today. And folks are running around like Chicken George, the sky's falling, the sky is falling. The fact is that there are more blacks being educated at Howard University than all the blacks who are being educated in these Ivy League schools on the affirmative action. And what they've done successfully, even during the time I was in school, is that if you saw a black body in a white space at a university or college, they thought that you got there through affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I remember, as an econ major, I remember I took Professor Liu's class, and Professor Liu, I forgot what course that was, econ course that it was. And passing out the exams. God bless Professor Liu. He's one of those gentlemen who really supported me too. Passing out the exams, and you can see, you have 87, and you circle around in the red. You can see it, even if you, like me, if I know I have my glasses on, my wife knows I can't see her, even though I can't see her. I can't miss her, right? And it was the spring semester, and I got my grade back. I forgot what the grade was, but it was a low grade. And this white guy just made a comment to me that finally I got a grade higher than you. I was like, huh? And I had to go back in my brain after a couple of days. I said, oh, yeah, he was in, I took an econ class in the fall with him. But the point I'm trying to make here is that they have tried to delegitimize all the things that we've done by saying we did not earn it because of our hard work and merit. We got it because someone gave us a pass,
a handout, right?
A handout, right? And I look at a lot of my brothers, man, who are incarcerated, and the fact is, we have transformed more wealth for them in terms of incarceration and the federal government and the state paying for those beds than they have given to us in education. The trick back again is to use the market, which is supposed to be arbitrary, right, and neutral, to grind us into dust.
Yeah.
And when we look at these trade agreements, and when we look at these economic alliances, the market is not neutral. It's a manipulation of the market. It's not neutral, right? And what it does is that it compounds an advantage for those who are in, and for those who are out. What our young people are working at McDonald's. Not to say that McDonald's is not a great job. It's great when you're staying home with your parents and it's money for you to buy gas, and your mom and dad buys you a car so you can get around. And while you're out there driving, they're worrying about you constantly.
Yeah.
And we don't learn this until we become parents, right? Right. And they try to say that we are not worthy because black folks, y'all don't believe in the institution of marriage. And what they have done is grind us down into dust. That we believe that we can survive on our own. And I've seen this. I've seen this so often.
I actually just recently did a podcast on how the lack of marriage in the Black community has affected the youth. We know that marriage is an institution, which means it was instituted in society by the people who form society. And we know that marriage is an accepted behavior throughout the world. But when I was looking at the data, I saw that not only are our never married rate rose from the 1970s, but also in the United States, the age in which we marry has increased. Can you tell me what is the purpose of marriage?
Marriage is the unity of two people. And if you look at our community and the historical facts that surround marriage in our community, it has been a mechanism for survival. It's been a mechanism for us to hold our communities together. And you'll find that in the 50s, And when Moynihan wrote his report back in the 60s, I think 65, 7 out of 10 babies were born into a relationship where their parents were married.
Yep.
But then, I hear these pundits talk about, blacks became, they bastardized women as being hoes and loose, right? And the growth of women, single parents out of wedlock. But then you look at what happened, it was the period of Black Power movement. And all of a sudden, you have a surge in our communities of guns and drugs. Guns and drugs. And I don't know, bro. You lived here in New York. I don't know how many gun factories are here in New York.
Oh, not a lot of gun factories, but there was a lot of guns.
Yeah. So where did they come from?
Yeah.
I mean, guns put on both feet and just walk up there, right? And if you look at all these cats from my generation who are locked up as drug kingpins, most of them, in fact, the majority of them, do not have passports or license to fly planes. And we're talking about drugs that can be manufactured on the the boulevard of Eastern Parkway.
Nah, they gotta come from Colombia or Nicaragua or somewhere.
And they go through this because they control the media, man. I remember back in the 80s, they talk about the wolf pack and the cats who got convicted for raping that woman in Central Park, and those cats being railroaded. Those were children, man. They wanted to go home. It's like me putting my mind against a 6-year-old and saying I've been triumphant. I got a confession. This is the old the ideology, the mindset they create in our heads. You watch the movie, when it comes to find a criminal, find a black guy. A drug dealer, find a black guy. When I went to college, if you want to find drugs, go hit up the white fraternities houses.
Yeah.
Cocaine, whatever you want, right there.
Right there. So you're saying
there were no rates on those frat houses?
Yeah. So you're saying the criminalization of black men in the 70s led to the destruction of the family?
No, it was by design, man. Come on, brother. The guys I grew up with, in fact, the majority of us had parents who were married. My mom and dad was married. Nice mom and dad was married. Eric mom and dad was married. They were married. Was their relationship perfect? Hell no. You know what I'm saying? But they were married. And people will talk about relationships being perfect. Shucks. And sometimes I like to say to my wife, look, I'll be back. Say, yeah, leaving out that door.
Yeah.
We go through, but that's what they try to teach us. And I had I forget this conservative scholar who was a part of this broken glass nonsense, where we are being harassed. We are being harassed. We're being criminalized. If you look across any country, there's always a small portion of the population that just criminals. Right? They're just criminals. It's a fact.
Social deviance, yeah. It's going to be there.
Social deviance is a part of social control, but social deviance is also a part of change. Right? At one time, getting divorced was like frowned upon. Now it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But those people, because they have money, are not being criminalized. As my wife loved to say to me, you know what, Jay? I'd rather have a problem, but I got money in the bank, than have a problem and I have no money in the bank. Most of us ain't got no money in the bank.
Yeah.
Right? We don't. So, as I have said to my colleagues at the college, we have to come up with what, not even come up because it's been done before. It's been done before. I remember reading Benjamin E. May's biography, right? And being inspired by this man because for many years he was a president at Morehouse College, right? Martin Luther King went to school there. Martin Luther King's father and Benjamin and Mays were fraternity brothers, right? And these schools did a great job of preparing these leaders to lead the civil rights movement, which Madam Marable called the Second Reconstruction, the Second Black Reconstruction, right? And with affirmative action, you know, folks had opportunities. But these cats, before affirmative action, Dr. Mays went to, I believe, the University of Chicago, where he got his PhD. And I am a advocate of we need to build our institutions. And you know what? When the Holocaust was taking place in Germany and in Europe, a lot of those scholars came and found a place, historically black colleges and universities. And our young people benefited from that exposure. Look, brother, as I said to my wife, ship our kids off to some boarding school to learn. They're gonna be right here on our hips, right?
Yeah.
And both of them are, look, they've had their challenges, but they're doing well. They're doing well. Taking care of our grandkids. They're doing well, bro.
Yeah.
So when they start talking this okie doke about we don't love our children, if something was to happen to my children right now, I would die, man. So when I read the stuff that they're reading on the teleprompter, that is served to dehumanize us. What you are doing is important to humanize them and to let them know, look, if he feels this strongly against this cat, put down the gun, let's go in the schoolyard, put some boxing glove on, and you'll settle it.
Yeah.
Because when you shoot somebody, you're taking somebody's loved one. And that's what they're placed in our heads.
You not only take somebody loved one, but you put yourself in jail too.
Listen, that's how they pay for their. I say this, I remember growing up, man. We used to go to Orchard Street in the Williamsburg section of Manhattan to buy clothes.
Yeah.
Right. And used to have vendors, man, about a 1.5 block, 2 blocks length, and everyone was selling their goods, right? And I remember many years after walking down Orchard Street and saying, this Orchard Street. And that just left it on my head. A couple months later, it popped in. That's where we used to go to buy clothes.
Mm.
And those vendors, they were so successful, they were able to pay for their kids going to college, medical school, law school, getting their PhDs, and so on and so forth. That the kids were successful. They didn't want to do that no more.
Yeah.
So that generation passed on. Again, I had a boss on E.B. Price, and he said, he taught me many years ago, success matters. And the thing about people that look like you and me, we have always made room for others. No matter how they came to us, no matter how they look like, we didn't pass judgment because we knew what it felt like to be passed judgment on.
Yeah.
You just minding your own damn business. You get bum rushed. Because apparently you're black. Bro, we're original people. And we should never lose that. And some of us have lost that. That's the Minister Farrakhan said. By the way, some of us act, we've lost our minds. They've lost their minds.
Yeah, you mentioned the great elder, man. The Bible tells us young men for war, old men for counsel. The relationship between the old generation and young generation have been vital in the progression of humankind. In societies, how important is that relationship? Like that we merged into a relationship that the same conversation that me and you are having. Like how important is it for the communities to have it? Because growing up, I didn't see a lot of older men um, supporting the younger generation.
Because we're locked up, bro.
Yeah.
We're locked up. I have a picture in my office of this gentleman when he was trying to build downstate. I forget the name of the Black Construction Union, who went in protest because they wouldn't give us jobs. You can get jobs in the trade, right? I remember one of my fraternity brothers. He went and took the test to become a firefighter. He scored in the 98th percentile. They never called him. Now he'd be retired. Right? And you'll find that a lot of these civil service jobs been set aside for folks who are quote unquote white. And white is a recent invention. And by recent invention, I'm talking about for some, look at before World War II, the Italians were not considered to be a part of the white race. Neither were the Irish. After the World War II and the Civil Rights Movement, and colonial people throughout the world rising up and saying, "Hell, we're not carrying your water anymore." All of a sudden, they were let in, right?
They let into the white club.
Yeah, and listen, man. I whatever club people want to be a part of, they could be a part of. I want to be a part of that club that follow in the footsteps of Jesus. That accept people for who they are, where they are, without judgment. But there's also accountability.
Yeah, that goes into what you said about social constructs being imagination, because Irish and Italians were not considered white. They were ushered into that group.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of these fangled sayings now, and look, I'm not critical of it. Social media, and I'm not critical of it because human beings, from the time we discovered fire, that was revolutionary.
Yep.
Then the wheel, that was revolutionary. Right? Marriage, that was revolutionary. Right? It was revolutionary. The railroad was revolutionary. The domestication of animals, that was revolutionary. It put our society on a different level.
Yeah. Change the social behavior, change how we live. Absolutely.
It gave us new possibilities. And the space that they're trying to push us in, my brother, no, don't go into that night quietly. No. Because they want you to believe the okie doke. They want you to believe that you don't belong here. You can't afford it. They see you driving a Maserati. You must be a drug dealer. And why? Because I saw it on TV.
True. Crazy.
You're a black man that's dressed elegantly. You must be a drug dealer. Why? Because I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
Right? And how could you? And they believe it. How can you afford to live in this space? My brother, you are a teacher. You have to empower our young people to want better, to do better, to love better.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, man, my wife been going through some issues in terms of medical or health. Am I supposed to walk away? No. As I said to her, as we get old, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen.
That's true.
I chased you when I first met you. I'm gonna chase you all through my life. But they want to believe that us as black men, we want to have sex with all these women.
Yeah.
That's why they want to define us. Right?
That's what one of the program was. Do you think that if we bring back morals and ethics, that we could reinvigorate the?
Bro, we have always had moral and ethics, man. Bring back what? That's what I've been talking to you about. Bring back what? There's some of us who never had it because we grew up in a dysfunctional, toxic environment.
That's true.
As a parent, your job is to make sure that your environment is not toxic. Right? And when you see it happening with you and your woman, or you and you cut it off.
Yeah.
This is not how we live. Because you're not going to walk out of our house and bring that act somewhere else. No. But they want us to tell us, man, that's the way we act. Black people, they ain't got no morals. Right?
Absolutely.
And as I said, brother, we have to love, and accept people where they are, but not falling for the okie doke.
Absolutely. I got two more questions for you, man, before we depart, man. So I got the other question is, growing up, I saw a lot of churches on the block. Sometimes it was like 3 or 4 churches on the block. One professor told me that it was a product of poverty, that there were so many churches on every block. I lived in Flatbush, Brooklyn, Newkirk. How does poverty correlate to the access of churches in minority communities of color?
I don't have any scientific evidence to speak to that. I have to do some research about that. But I do know that I strongly know that is a part of the solution to empowering and building our infrastructure, our social infrastructure as a community. It's churches that can provide safe havens. And a lot of times I pass by these churches and they're closed.
Yeah.
And I pass by churches and they're closed. If I was a pastor, my church door will always be open.
Yeah.
Even for people to come and to sit down and meditate for a moment.
Yeah.
Or to meditate.
Yeah.
And to ask for help. We talk about pop. Look, when Martin Luther King or Professor Robinson, when they started the Montgomery boycott, churches was a very important part of that. We have a new church now, the Church of Twerking, the Church of the Pole, right?
Yeah.
And I say this sarcastically because they've taught us that excellence is about being absurd. Excellence is about being sensational. Excellence is about the profane. Right? It's not about building. It's about building a monument for yourself, to yourself. Right? It's about bragging about how great you are. And the fact is, as I say to my wife, we get old. I can't do the things I love to do. I can't do no more. And that's a part of walking with the ancestors. It's a part of walking with God.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about it. I don't. I've had my time and I still have my time. But we watch this stuff on these channels that are being presented as one way, but when you look at the power structure behind it, it's something else.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at an artist like Prince, If you look at artists like Earth, Wind, and Fire or the OJs, they would not be famous today. They would not be famous today if they came out with their music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question, man. This is the Hosea 4:6 History Podcast. So the goal is to help people gain knowledge to make better decisions in their lives. What lessons do you take from sociology that you apply in your life today?
Let me say this. The lesson I take from the Bible, Quran, is faith. And when we talk about faith, people want evidence. And faith is about walking and the belief. And as I said to you, it's knowing that the road, the way you walk is the right way without looking for evidence.
Mm.
And a part of life, going again about the coin of the analogy I share, a coin, you have the physical world on one side, the spiritual world on the other side. If you could treat your triumphs and disaster both the same, most of us cannot. We think it's about when. But in order for the crop to grow, it has to rain. And the sun has to shine. Again, in the way that we've been taught in school, it's like opposites. The progressive, the conservatives. And that model is crazy. We look at places where talk about conservative principles. They want to control you and have everybody goose stepping down the avenue.
Mm.
Either as dictators or as servants. And you know what? The role that they have hollowed out for us. And the progressive, they want to tax you out of damn existence.
Yeah.
They want to tax you. They identify something that's wrong. Okay, we're going to walk around. If you double park, we're going to give you $100 tax. Right? Or now in New York City, congestion pricing. Going back again, in defense of the indefensible, you have to come up with euphemistic language. Right? And before you know it, you drive people away. Because you just want to. My house out in Maryland. Damn, where I live, I could leave my freaking car in the middle of the road. People leave me alone.
Yeah.
I could park my car literally in the middle of the damn road.
And
People leave me alone.
That's true.
Right?
And not in New York City, though.
Looks like you and me.
Uh-huh.
But when we watch TV, anytime you see a comedian that looks like you and me, you got drums and fire and abandoned buildings and junkies and all that stuff. We have to change we have to tell our story. Because they've been telling our stories for so long that they believe it.
Mm.
Right? So I mean the brother who's bird watching in Central Park, I'm gonna call the cops and tell them. Child blind, bro, end up dead. That is not what excellence is about. We have to decolonialize our language, my brother. We got to talk in the language of people who are healthy, people who have love, people understand that, you know what, right now, today, brother, I don't love you, man. It's okay. Don't mean that next week I won't.
Yeah.
We have to decolonize our language, and we have to. And when we do that, the young people, man, it's like watching that movie School Days. Wake up! or do the right thing. Yo, how come they are brothers on the wall? You know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
and you young people, you make history, and the history becomes from young history to old history, and it becomes a part of ancestral, our ancestral. Am I pronouncing that right? History.
Ancestral.
Yes, history. Thank you, bro.
Uh-huh.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what we have to. Our young people. If you don't have a vision, and if you don't have a purpose, and if that vision and purpose not rooted, we have what we have, and that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They make money off of our misery. So when we talk about affirmative action, look, build our institutions, and our young people go anywhere. Look at yourself, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't teach you nothing about podcasting. Now you teach them. You know, look at you, man. You follow me?
I follow you.
You are our future. You are our reflection,
I appreciate you.
right? And our reflection cannot burn bright if we are dim and get caught up in the stuff, man, that these young people see on TV and these videos of people living, fat, but you don't know that the car they drive is rented.
Mm.
You don't know the jewelry that they have around their necks are rented,
Mm.
right? You don't know that. Okay, they may have $10 million in the bank, but they owe 50.
Yeah. So it's low self-esteem making them make those
No,
decisions.
it's not low. Here again, my brother. It's not. Let's not. And I apologize.
Yeah.
Go back to C. Rod Mills. If one person loses a job, lazy. 100,000 people loses their job. There's something else going on, and we have to put our research cap on, our thinking cap on, and before you know it, it leads us down a whole bunch of roads
Mm.
that we could not anticipate. Like I said, when I went to college, I wouldn't. Why is it that only 2 of us graduate? Now I know. Why did more of us end up in prison and jail than the other brother who graduated with me? He's not retired.
Yeah.
I remember the first job he went to, and his last job. I mean, he had his main job. I remember when he applied for it. We were together just talking and went from the application, interviewed, and he's retired. Again, brother, why believe when we can know?
Yes.
And knowing requires effort.
Mm.
It requires effort. It requires dedication. It requires you're gonna get kicked in your teeth, but you still I rise. You know, yes, it's still I rise.
Still I rise.
Still I rise, and as a teacher, whether you realize it or not, what you do in the classroom will resonate for a long time. In junior high school, I had a high school um, chemistry, I believe, Mr. Watkins. Mr. Watkins told me if you get a D, you can fail. So, I got a D. I was like, oh, I got a D. I got. Now I realized I failed.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And I had another teacher in high school, Mr. Paris, and 12th grade high school. And the whole theme of my 12th year high school, Miss Paris was about conformity and how they teach you how to. And at the time, I'm like, I read all these books and all this. And I came as a man to learn. Wow. Now I get it. The books he gave to us, I mean, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Harvest Home, Brave New World, 1984, and there were maybe two or three other books. It was all about conformity. And at the time, I didn't understand the significance, but to understand the significance, I still remember his name. That's almost 5 decades. As a teacher, you make an impact, and you determine how the impact is. Not the Massachusetts Department of Education who want to force curriculum down on teachers. Right? You have to be creative.
Yeah.
Right? Those young people need it, brother.
Definitely.
God, brother, don't be a stranger, man. Let's stay in touch. You know, I'll bring some other folks on.
I appreciate you.
And maybe you could talk to Dr. D Longoria.
I've been trying to get her on, man. So
no problem, man. I connect you, bro.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, because we talked about it. She's saying to me, that name today was talking about, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, she's good people.
I'm gonna hold you to it, man. I need Dr.
Yeah, blood, man. No problem, man.
All right, I appreciate you, man.
Thank
you for coming on, man.
God bless you, man. Keep doing what you do.
Absolutely. All
right.
You gotta control the narrative, man. And you coming on this podcast is helping me control the narrative. I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.
Hosea 406, man. Enjoy.
Original man in a minute, baby. Peace.